All right, guys, so the next step in our modeling process, and which is our unit 4 for this course, is creating assemblies, okay? And assemblies are basically taking all of these parts that you create and putting them together. And we put them together using various tools in the software in order to properly, eventually create the overall assembly or the finished object that it is you're trying to create and fabricate. The most important aspect to this part of the project now, and it's something that I cannot provide you Dropbox folders for, is because when we start assembly files, assemblies are built by referencing to the parts that are required to create the assembly. So when you're doing your birdhouse, for instance, your birdhouse is going to be comprised of a bunch of different parts, right? Walls, columns, a base, roof components, maybe window trims, maybe a door design, all these different elements. Again, you know, if you produce a really awesome birdhouse design, your birdhouse design is going to have in your assembly anywhere from 30 to, I've had as many as 60 to 70 different parts in the assembly, right? Doesn't mean that you have to create 50 or 60 different parts, because sometimes, for instance, when you create one column and you want to have 10 columns for your covered porch of your birdhouse design, you only have to model that column once, and then you're able to place that column into the assembly as many times as you need. But you still need to be able to put that assembly together, right? So that means you have more assembly work involved, but again, you only have to do, if there's multiple parts, one of that part in terms of your parts. But the software in the assembly will look for, in a central file location, for the part. So when you go to open up your assembly every day to work on it, and you're adding a new piece in and you're constraining it and you're doing your work with that, if your files, all your part files and your assembly file, and eventually your presentation animation file and all your drawing files, if they're not in the same file folder, you will have a nightmare, because every time you go open up your assembly files or your presentation files or your drawing files, which look for the parts, and if it can't find the part, you're going to get a bunch of errors in your work because it can't find the parts. So it is very important, as we move through this particular unit now, that the very first thing you do is you have to do a little bit of file management, and you have to create what's called a project file. Okay? And then everything you do for the specific, and our first challenge is going to be our 3D cube puzzle. Everything you do for that 3D cube puzzle, every part, every assembly, your animation, and your drawing files have to be in the same file format, like in the same file folder. Okay? It is bizarre to me how many students don't know how to create files and file manage on a computer, because maybe you guys are, just because of Google Docs and all that kind of stuff, maybe you don't have to do it that often anymore. But you need to make sure it's in a central location. I have to figure out, because of all this too, especially for online people and how you're going to submit things, because most of you in this school, when you're in the classroom, you have an M drive, which you must make sure that your work is saved to your M drive. When you're at home, you don't have an M drive. So you need to have a central file location that you'll create so that you can submit or save all of your work in those files, so that when I ask you at the end of the project to submit your work, and you won't be submitting it through the Dropboxes, because I cannot, Dropboxes all have individual files. They're not all in that one central file location. So I'm not able to open up your assemblies and your work because it won't be able to find the parts. So all of you guys have access through your student accounts. You have access to a OneDrive, Microsoft OneDrive. So that might be one area that we'll explore, whether you save all of your work to a OneDrive and then you're able to share that OneDrive file with me, or you'll have to then upload that file folder that you've created to your Google Drive and then share that entire folder with me so that I can access all of your work. Because when I go to open up these pieces of work from you in the software, it needs to be able to reference where it's coming from quickly and accurately, or else I'm going to have. So I might have to do some testing and use you guys in the class as a guinea pig once we get our 3D cube puzzle figured out to see if that's all going to work. Okay. It becomes obviously more difficult for people at home because the M drive is the solution. Because then I can ask you, I have hand-in folders on the network drive at the school that I can ask you to copy and paste your file folder for your work to the hand-in drive. People at home, you don't have access to it. So anyways, so if we go up to new, again, you'll notice at the bottom there's a projects button. So I'm going to go to projects and I'm going to go to new. It asks you, what do you want to do? What type of project you're creating? For this class, we're going to be creating new single user projects. The new Vault project, what that is that is a networked project file, which allows collaboration and multiple people to work on the same project at the same time. So if I had some sort of group design project and I wanted you guys to model it on Inventor, and you guys divvied up the, like, I'm going to do this part, and I'm going to do that part, and I'm going to do that part, then you would create a Vault project where then everything goes into a spot where all the group members have access to that file, right? You're not doing that this year. And so we'll be using a new single user project. So we'll go to next. This is where it says name project name. This is where you're going to save it. So in this particular case, in your first project, it's going to be 3D cube puzzle. Okay? Name it 3D cube puzzle. Name it my 3D cube puzzle. Put your first name 3D cube puzzle. I don't care what you name it, but don't hand in a file that says project name. Because as you do, you'll end up at the end of this course having two project files created. One that's going to be 3D cube puzzle and one that's going to be architectural birdhouse. So again, I would come in here and I would type in 3D puzzle. You'll notice that it has the folder location. So it goes C, users, Lupus D, documents, Inventor, 3D puzzle. So this is one possible place where you could save it. Or you go over here, browse for project location, right? This PC. I don't have an M drive anymore because they took the teacher M drives away because we have our OneDrives. So in my case, I would go up to my OneDrive. I'll just kind of do the example in here. So I pick my file folder. In your case, you're going to find your M drive. Okay, I would highly recommend that within your M drive, you create a file folder that's called Tech Design, right? So if you don't know how to do it, let me just go here real quick. File Explorer, right? If I go to my OneDrive, my TDJ20, right? To create a file folder, I right click, new, folder, and you would say tech design or tech or whatever the heck you want to call it, just so you have a location by which you save everything. Right? So if I go back here, And sorry, this opened up on the opposite screen. So I right clicked, that created my tech design. If I now go to my TD20, I now have a tech design folder. Hit OK. So that's where it's going to save it. Finish. And you'll notice now I have a project name called 3D Puzzle. If I click on this, it's not letting me do it because I have something open already. So let me just, I can't make it the active project right now. So I'm just going to close this down, exit this. So now if I go to new, where it says project file, you'll notice it was grayed out before, you didn't have access to it. I now have the option to now go to my 3D puzzle. And now I can pick, and again, the units for the 3D cube puzzle are in inches. And then I would go to my standard inch IAM. And now I'm ready to start working. So if I go back to my tech design file folder, you'll now notice that within that file folder, I have an IPJ, which is my project file. And then as I start to add in my parts, my assemblies, my presentations, and my drawing files, they will all be in this tech design file folder. Okay? Now, in your situation, I would create a tech design file folder in your M drive. At home, create a tech design file folder in your documents or somewhere on your computer on the C drive. Then in that tech design file folder, I would then create, right? So I would, in this particular case, I would create within that file folder another folder that says 3D puzzle. And I would move these particular two in there to keep it clean. So when I want to hand in my 3D puzzle stuff for evaluation to me, then all you do is you right click copy and you paste the entire file folder to wherever I tell you to, or share it with me, or however we're going to do it. But now if I go in here, now I have, so organization of your file work is crucial as we move forward. So that's really it on how to create project files and work in project files. And like I said, for now I'm going to stop because we have a break in 13 minutes. So you can just kind of work away on, if you've got all your work done, you can create a project file now for your 3D cube puzzle, get a little bit of file management done in your M drive. So create a tech design file folder in your M drive, and then create 2 file folders in your tech design file folder. One will be 3D cube puzzle and the other will be architectural birdhouse. Get that out of the way. Get yourself in the habit of saving things in the proper locations, because I promise you, if you don't, it's going to be a nightmare for you, because you're going to do a bunch of work one day and be careless in where you're saving your parts and things and your assemblies. And then you're going to go open up an assembly, and then all the parts are going to be missing. Or all of a sudden, a couple walls have disappeared from the assembly that you put in the day before, and you don't know what's going on. It's because those 2 walls that are no longer in your assembly are not in your project file folder location. And then as the program, when it opens up your assembly the next day, it starts looking for all the files. And if 2 are missing, it's going to give you error messages. And then you have to go and search all throughout your computer to try to figure out where they are. And then you have to move those files to the project file so you don't end up with that. And it's a mess. It's a gigantic mess you don't want to deal with. Okay? So follow these instructions, and everything, I promise, will work smoothly for you moving forward.